Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and this week we're going to talk about third party publishing and the fifth edition rules that are in the Creative Commons. Yes, Dungeons and Dragons, the brand name, of course, belongs to Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. But there are plenty of third party publishers. And if you are someone who's interested in continuing to keep playing classic fantasy D20, there are many of third-party publishers, and of course, this is an inspiration channel. This is where we world build, where we knock the cobwebs out of our head. We find mind fuel, and I thought we would do a week of third-party publishing content for fifth edition. And now, mind you, I don't know if there's another word to call fifth edition. Maybe we can call it. I just generally call it Fantasy D20. And so, for those who are interested in how third-party publishers look at this material, if you're someone who wants to continue playing these and you don't want to give a dime to WotC or Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro or Dungeons and Dragons, you can absolutely do that as well. And and uh, I I like to share things that inspire me, so I hope that these things also inspire you guys. So some of this material that I'm going to show you is old, so down in the description, the very first line is the title of the book and where you can find it if you'd like to pick it up or find some other reviews of it. We're not really going to review these books, so I specifically said this is not a review, and it's not even going to be so much as a page through, but I want to show you some aspects of what it is, and let's get into it. So, of course, all of you that are able to arrive at the show live, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, of course, are our co-hosts. So I'd like to see what they have to say. uh, member of the Shite Squad. Drew says, nice to see that the whole week is already planned, and I know not a single one of those worlds. Exactly. Also, listen, we all suffer from world builders disease. Let's not get it twisted. And that suffrage, no, that's the wrong word. Ooh, the suffering that happens to us, um, sometimes we like to share that pain. And so I'd like to share out some of these worlds that already exist and go, oh, okay, and see where it comes from. And you're going to tell that as I show you some of these inspirational materials that you can go, oh, maybe I'm thinking differently, but I understand where they came from. Oh man. After Planebreaker, I'd like to see Planebreaker, in which the play is an ancient Roman party guest. Oopa! Yeah. My fourth was pretty good. Late start. I got to see four sets uh, of fireworks. It's an opportunity for my wife and I to travel around the state of Ohio. So we do Red, White, and Boom, which is downtown Columbus, Ohio, and then we go to different counties around our area, in Pickerington and Reynoldsburg and Gahanna and Bexley, which is where I work, and things like that. And they're all those communities have their own fireworks displays and county fair food, that when you're not supposed to eat, uh, all that kind of stuff. So it was awesome. So Shai says, so Planebreaker is a third party setting that has nothing to do with the classic Planescape. No, it does not. Let's just turn this off here. So, uh, no, we need to do the opposite. There we go. All right. So introduction to Planebreaker. Planebreaker is produced by Monty Cook Games, and for those who do not know, Monty Cook used to be a prolific writer for Dungeons and Dragons, and from what I understand, that Planebreaker was an idea that came about during the development of Planescape. So this is third party. This was not produced, written at all for in conjunction with any body at Dungeons and Dragons. These are ideas that Monty Cook had in his head, and the writers put this stuff together into something known as Planebreaker, and we're going to get into what Planebreaker means. Now, relatively thick book. It's about, let's see, I won't say 300 pages. No, 240, 240 pages. And the idea behind Planebreaker is that over a period of time, a moon. Wow, the descriptor of this is going to be weird. Yeah, quote. There it is. There it is. The quote. The path of the Planebreaker introduces this enigmatic interplanar object that unlocks access to the planes for characters of all levels, and it is a like the March of the Modrons. The Planebreaker. Why isn't this? Here we go. Let's put this window back up here. The path of the Planebreaker. Imagine it as a moon or what would be another descriptor? Um, a comet, a meteorite, and the path of the Planebreaker travels through all of the planes of existence. And if you can really see, let's see if I can zoom in on the cover of the cover of this image here. And let's get it hyper set up here. And this, I mean, it looks like there's a major city on an asteroid or a comet. As it spirals through, it leaves this arcane trail of energy as it literally shatters from one plane of existence to the next, on its path. Now, some say that it has a regular path that happens in a predicted manner, in which the different denizens of the various planes of existence that can prepare for it will, be intercepted by this thing. Some will suffer some of the harm. Here we got some people who are like looking up into the skies, like, what the hell is that? What's going on? And let's be honest, okay, about this creation. The Planebreaker itself is an excuse to have any adventure at any time period by breaking the rules of Planescape, and yet being able to delve into Planescape, and not just Planescape, meaning like the elemental planes and the planes of alignment, but any known world ever is the idea behind the idea of Planebreaker. In other words, it not only can travel to any plane of existence, the Planebreaker itself is a place you can visit. So on a visage of, if you can kind of see, imagining yourself like in the orbit of Earth and looking down at major cities, uh, there's a giant city or multiple cities on the Planebreaker itself that you can visit, and the tendrils, the debris, the residue that envelops and is dragged along by it also has an effect as well. So you can actually visit it. The smoke that's coming from this image are fragments of other planes of existence that are dragged through. So there's a number of ways to visit it. All of them, let's be honest, they're all world building excuses to get the hell on this thing and have adventures. And of course, you can play this at any level of Fantasy D20. It's basically a giant MacGuffin. It is a massive interplanar MacGuffin to throw your players into action. Let's see what you guys have to say. Jay says, "Yeah, D&D sci-fi, cheesy or non-cheesy. It depends on your opinion. I don't know if this image, did I get it? That's all right. Also, if there's a city on this thing smashing from one plane to another, everybody in that city is going to die. Well, yes and no. It is. I mean, it's quite a bit. Yeah, that's a better. Wow, should have did that way. Sorry. This is magic, so yeah. Just the fact that it's the idea that it's smashing into other things. You might want to like uh, hold off the real physics to something else. Hold on, swallow the disbelief for a moment. Yeah. Drew says, Comet is right. A meteorite is a piece that landed. A meteor would be the object that has entered our atmosphere. So a little bit closer to meteor or comet rather than something that impacts land. It actually smashes across travels across the sky, I guess would be the better version of how to take a look at it. There's also the infinite staircase. Yeah, that gave you a more plausible way of accessing all the planes than an asteroid with a city on it. Well, okay, so we're going to get into um, a number of ways of how this particular um, how the Planebreaker operates. In other words, there are clearly excuses to get on this thing, get around it, and all that kind of stuff. So one of the ways that you can, I'll turn the page to it. So one of the, let's reduce the size here, and let's go to the Planebreaker's path for just a moment. So on a and this location actually is within the book. The artwork, Monty Cook has always been able to acquire really great artwork. The artwork is extremely thematic and non, very dreamlike in many ways. Pretty amazing artwork, to be honest with you. So there are a number of traits that are exhibited about the Planebreaker, and you'll notice that the layout of this book in the I'm going to say the sidebar tells you where to find some various information. In other words, it is much like highlighting things, highlighting elements in a regular book or digital content or using a bookmark. Monty Cook tends to lay out the books with a sidebar that gives you page references. It may give you some lore, and also um, it'll there's meta knowledge, like in terms of like why is this thing in existence, and also maybe a little bit of like don't. In other words, it's like, oh, the stuff in the meat that you're reading, maybe you could read that out to your players, but in a sidebar, that's for you to know, for some hidden knowledge or hidden histories or things like that. So, for example, it says the radius of this is the Planebreaker trait breakout box, and it just lets you know a few things. There's also I know some people have a problem with this. To me, I really don't have a problem with it, but there's literally box text in this set. So be aware there is boxed text. No, you aren't mandated to have to read it out verbatim to your players, but we're going to get into some of that box text. So it talks about the radius of the Planebreaker is about 5 miles. The Planebreaker is visibly irregular, not spherical. Um, the height over visited planes is about 1 mile, so it doesn't impact land at all, but it will fly across the sky. It's about 1 mile in the air. Um, Time spent in visited planes are about 48 hours, but can vary between 1 and 100 hours. Many planes are vast, so a visit means the Planebreaker passes over a relatively small region of that plane. Um, the apparent speed in a visited plane is about 7 miles an hour, a flying speed of 70 feet, not quite as fast as a dragon flies. So it is possible for some creatures and player characters to catch up to it if it is moving across the sky. And then gravity is normal on the surface up to about 300 feet. It has as far as the air goes, is breathable on the surface to a height of about 300 feet, but thin and chilly, even if visiting a plane with a much different atmosphere. And then it just says light, provided by whatever dimension the moon is currently visiting, if any. If it's night on the visited plane, the Sea of Certainty's faint glow provides dim light along the causeways. And the city of Timeborn has magical lamps hanging along its main thoroughfares that provide islands of bright light, and that gives us a clue as to what will happen if and how you visit the place. So here's another. The Planebreaker arrives, and literally it just says read aloud. Right? Breakout text, which I'm going to read, and I'll see what you guys have to say. A crack shivers the air so loud you feel it like a punch. An enormous alien moon spills from a hole poked in the sky. Entangled with strands of shredded reality, the irregular moon's face is a leering red, etched with concentric lines of jagged light. Slagged stone, broken glass, bits of metal, and much stranger material rains down in the wake of the moon's appearance, pattering the ground like a squall. And there's more and more. A lot of the box text, the read aloud stuff, is scattered throughout based on the different planes you go to, and things like that. There's debris. You can add aspects of that. Talks about breaking the walls of the world, and how you can visit different places. The surface of the Planebreaker, and it gives some general details. Now, there are a number of ways to visit. I'll do this introduction, so I want to leave this image up here to explain it to you. You can visit the plane if you end up getting a coin, and these medallions or coins, players can acquire them. If you want to introduce this into your fantasy game, you can introduce these as rewards, and it's basically a one-time token. It's a fee to get onto the planes of existence. These are path tokens, and the path token can be used maybe to instantly teleport a player character there. How to activate them? Here's some others. Coins from different other dimensions, and the coins are like one and done for the most part, but player characters could acquire different coins that may allow them access onto the Planebreaker and off of it. Hello from Germany. Well, hello. Here we go. Yeah, Shai says not because of the talking about smashing through from the Planebreaker going from plane to plane. Says not because of the smashing, because approximately half the planes are unsurvivable. It makes a comment about that as well. If the people in that city spend any amount of time on any elemental plane or lower plane, etc., they're going to die. They bring that up. so essentially there is a safety field on the Planebreaker, but the tendrils that fall off the back end of it are not really protected. So yes, Drew says I don't mind box text, but what I do mind is second person. I cannot stand that shite. You are all right. Yeah, second person. What? Yep. Mm-hmm. Says you could do a runaway train scenario like this. Yep, you're stuck on the Planebreaker and it's headed straight to the negative energy plane. Exactly. Listen, when it comes to world building, Planebreaker and everything related to it, it's just an excuse to create adventure, right? The what you can gather from this book is that there are no rules. The rule is there are no rules, okay? And how the Planebreaker got to where it is, where it goes, how long it travels there, how fast, how dangerous, that's really all up to you. Oh, it says just call me Hoy. Hey, what's up, Hoy? Thank you very much for joining. Yeah, we're Germans. Thank you very much for joining in. So we're talking about Path of the Planebreaker. Let me just continue with this 5-minute intro to Planebreaker. There are these coins known as tokens. They're more tokens than coins that allow access. Here's an image of characters traveling along the tendrils of the Planebreaker. Okay, so these individuals are you could claim they're adventurers, and this is the path, the comet tail off of the Planebreaker, and yes, you can travel on it to get to the Planebreaker. No, you are not traveling at the same relative speed. So once you find the tendrils, especially lower level characters or player characters that might be a little scared of like standing in front of this thing a mile up in or thereabouts up in the air, yes, they can follow the tendrils and join the path. And they talk about traveling the path, every stride a new scene. Also, because the Planebreaker is traveling to different planes of existence, you have every permission, and they describe many of these things. You have every permission to add elements of other planes of existence. Just like Shy Squad was talking, that parts of the elemental planes, parts of the lower planes, the higher planes, planes of insanity, planes of dreams, or whatever. If you want to throw any or all those kind of things in here, you absolutely have permission to do so. And they actually suggest that you do that. It also talks about finding this place by accident, on purpose, leaving the path to follow it. The path's undertow because you can get dragged by it by accident as well. There are communities that have mysteriously disappeared from the material plane, and now they exist kind of like dragged and now attached to the Planebreaker, and maybe trying to find their way home and things. There are actions and encounters on the Planebreaker. And then there's something known as the Sea of Uncertainty. The Sea of Uncertainty is the arrival point on the ass end of the Planebreaker. And you can wash ashore from the Sea of Uncertainty. And of course, we have some breakout box here, right? It's a falling. You tumble toward the reddish face of a wave-tossed sea stretching away in all directions. Then you plunge beneath its cold surface, surrounded by a burst of effervescent bubbles. Yes, it is an aquatic sea, but you don't need to breathe the fluid. And it talks about the characteristics of the sea. Again, here's a breakout box. It gives you some details, and then off to the side on the margin, there's the uncertainty storm on page 16. There's the whirlpool on page 17. So it does give you, it does kind of go, oh, what does this mean again? And the book, the Monte Cook layout is, oh, here's the other page for some additional information if you need it. And then again, with the breakout box, it tells you about the Sea of Uncertainty, like it's red lit, it's depthless, it's not potable, it's not potable water, it is buoyant. It's a door to other worlds and contains multitudes. It's an excuse. And again, here's an image of the Sea of Uncertainty and things that wash upon its shores. And it does give you a little hint of there's a whirlpool off to the left of these adventurers who are finding debris or something extra dimensional. It may have washed up on shore. And then, of course, there are like waves and currents and things of that nature that are visible. And then there's plenty of, again, sorry, there's even breakout boxes here. I mean, I'm sorry, uh, um, um, box text. Yeah. Get to some, there's some random tables every once in a while. Uncertainty storm, big waves, things like that. Just little things to add into it for the characters to arrive. Um, here's our objects and debris and maybe a limb, maybe somebody reaching down into that sea of uncertainty. And this is the intro to the city that is on the surface of the Planebreaker, known as Timeborn. And Timeborn is if you have to make a relationship of Timeborn to something that you may be familiar with in fantasy gaming, especially Dungeons and Dragons, Timeborn is like the city of Sigil or Sigil. It is a city of neutrality, a city of many different, all sizes, shapes, realities. And let me read the box text. It's a little long, slightly, but Timeborn entrance. And this is when you see the image on the surface. Let's see if we can find the. Let's see if we can show this up here. I'm not sure if this is, yep, there we go. So right here, the major city, where you can see all of the lights and things like that. That's Timeborn. Timeborn is a major city that spreads across a portion of this irregular moon, and and you can, of course, populate it with anything and everything. It suggests that you really should populate it with anything and everything of all backgrounds, alignments, re repurpose, rename, reuse, redefine things. So don't just take monsters from classic Dungeons and Dragons, just drop them in there, which you should, but you should also redefine them. So um, don't just drop devils and demons and angels and celestials and elementals, but change them around. Make a fire elemental that has is jovial and has a personality, and maybe it's green flame instead, or things like that. This more second person. Yeah, it's like I hate it so much. Oh man, breaking all the rules with Planebreaker. Bet they still have a rule to prevent you from going to Athos and breaking the game of Dark Sun. Yeah, yeah, well, yeah. Drew's like second person. I hate it so much. I get it. I get it. Oh well. I mean, to each their own. It doesn't bother me so much as long as it's done. Uh, it's not done overly done. But yeah, here's some second person. Timeborn entrance. Crumbling sculptures so strange it's difficult to know what they represent. Stud a cyclopean wall 50 feet high. A single, ominously tall statue. And there's an image of this. I'm going to show you the image. Easily 150 feet tall, stands astride the wall like a sentinel, vaguely humanoid but with 4 arms and a grotesque, terrifying visage. A ragged cavity about 40 feet across breaches the wall. Through the hole is a city of mismatched buildings, most different from its neighbor in style, age, and state of repair. It's as if architects from hundreds of dimensions each contributed something to the city, then departed. And everything, in turn, is built on far older ruins that poke through here and there. Pale stone towers with no windows, crumbling statues like those interspaced along the city walls, and free floating stone spheres pockmarked with strange glyphs. Many of the spheres are hung with lamps of far more recent make. Lone figures and small groups of people move along the irregular lanes, far too few to match the size and number of divergent structures surrounding them. And let's get it. Let me put up an image of here. Of course, there's a breakout box about specific details about the city of Timeborn. Timeborn is a place out of separated from the divine, the gods, also someplace separated from time itself, so that players could literally arrive here and find their ancestors. Players could arrive here, stay in the city, and then arrive back home centuries later, and things of that nature, unaged and whatnot. And yes, here is the um, H.R. Geiger esque statue with 4 arms holding a sphere, and there are these statue-esque like faces, I guess, along the parapets, and there's adventurers walking through the hole in the city, into the city. No one's bothered to repair the hole, and they haven't explained why there's a big giant hole in the first place. All right, let's see. Go back to our co-host. All right, Hoy. A 4-armed beast ready to open its maw and drain you of your life and resources. I'm presuming. Sorry if I hit a little too close to home. Drew says, I'm a little disappointed that this is a city. When I saw the thumbnail, I thought it is a crack in reality itself when the Planebreaker crashes into a different plane. So let's see. Let's see if we can get close up of this imagery here. So what's happening is the moon itself is a physical place. The breaking of reality is what it does in the atmosphere, if that makes sense. Oh, it won't let me. Oh no, it's not going to let me put up the put up the emoji. Mm-mm-mm. Sadly, I have to say the descriptions get worse. I despise measurements in the descriptions almost as much as I do the second person. I'm surprised. I agree. I do agree with that. Like I like this when things are described in heights and widths. I like them described in relationship to other things. Like the giant stood, you know, at least 2 men high. It weighed as much as as a group of cattle or something like that. Oh, boy, you're right. Uh, if it only was this. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I do agree with the like leave the measurements out. I would like to describe them in relationship to other things like impossibly tall, reaches to the clouds, um, could barely be pulled by 10 oxen or something like that. Time, space, weight, distances, things like that. So it gives you some detail about the city, not a lot. It's got the proverbial like, this is where the criminals live. This is where some nobles live. This is where the merchants are. There's a bit of that. There's also some planar elements to it in terms of where you can find elements of other planes of existence. Sages, the Interpreters Guild, acceptable currency. That's here. I was going to I was going to find bookmarks, but instead I'm just going to go through here. There is some absurdity in this, so it's not all like dark and demons and gothic stuff. It does attempt to be colorful um, and whimsical in some ways, although not very silly. So it may be dreamlike and absurdist, uh, conflating two things that may not have a connection to each other. But yeah, there's a character known as the Mantis. We'll get to her in just a moment. But anyway, it just shows them in various individuals. Like even this person here, sometimes there's something incongruent. Like for example, in this image, they have this individual here standing next to a four-limbed bird-faced creature, and this individual looks like maybe they have a cyber leg or something, or armor from the far future, maybe, but you're not really certain. So they do suggest adding little things like that with various characters and NPCs. There are some that are, I mean, now mind you, the Planebreaker is an adventure module of sorts, so it's filled with a ton of encounters. Basically, it is a sandbox encounter book. So when the players make a left turn and go somewhere else, you can turn to that particular part of the book and fill it. I mean, read what it has, use the elements in it, and then it gives you at the end of each of those, it tells you like, oh, if you want to add even more detail, here's some adventure hooks. So um, and again, there's some imagery here, like the to the left of this image, left of the image, there's someone walking with a pet or a mount, possibly. Maybe it looks like a pet. There's some adventurer types always hanging around. Yeah, you can always tell the adventurers because they always got their cloaks up, like I'm mysterious. And then there is soul silver, a type of coinage, and an NPC. These are like three-pronged coins. Talks about the soul silver that you can acquire here. Um, Acquire enough soul silver, you can actually acquire a wish spell. If you acquire, I think it's 1,000 pieces of soul silver that are handed out by this enigmatic creature who has. She has two uh, courtiers. And let's see if we can find this here. Um, Mantis, the Mantis and her two courtiers, a Glabrazu and a Deva, are on either side of her. So there's basically a demonic type of creature and a celestial, and they are her courtiers. So very strange. And she produces the soul silver from her soul. You can go. She's a quest giver, and you can acquire from complete a task. And so, um, yeah, the mantis could produce a number of pieces of soul silver each day, equal to her hit point total. Should she wish to completely deplete herself, she takes 1 damage per coin produced. So she only produces between 1 and 10 on any given day. In Timeborn, a piece of soul silver is worth about 100 gold pieces. However, soul silver has 2 additional magical properties. A single silver coin has healing properties, and a collection of 1,000 soul silver grants a creature a wish as described under the chest of soul silver. And it's like she's a quest giver. You can go on adventures, acquire enough, and then eventually, if you like or you want it's a goal for your players to like. Why should I do this thing? Well, here's a good excuse for doing that thing. There's Secrets of the Planebreaker. Of course, there's criminal organizations, things like that. But we're gonna leave the Planebreaker in just a minute. Vast Treasures, Cosmic Mausoleum is a moon of survival, and then we get into planar locations. Let's see if we can get this image centered here a little bit. See what you guys have to say. No, software, stop doing that. There we go. Strider, the arcade game. You guys are funny. Let's go backwards a little bit. Hoy says, "How do they get food? Is this a demi griffin?" Um, they do suggest some ways about how people, acquire food and water. Some of it is suggested that there's a guild that is aware of where the plane breaker may be headed. Also, for those visitors that arrive, a lot of trade is done with them. So goods and services are acquired from visiting things, as well visiting visitors who bring materials with them. So you can buy, sell, and trade the things that are acquired. Also, the plane breaker going from one plane of existence to another um, will accidentally acquire natural resources from one to another. Meaning, like, if it blasted through the atmosphere of Earth, it will draw in moisture from the sky. Birds will get sucked into it. Things like that. They will wash up on the like the Sea of Tranquility or whatnot, and that sort of thing. Also, let's be honest, it doesn't really operate under normal physics, right? So there is that, and of course, Timeborn, the city is like a timeless city, so you could always get away with like a number of these, resource consuming monstrous entities and such may not have to acquire as much. It's very easily hand waved away. But I like the idea of not managing resources, but resources are also a threat or can be threatened. So I'm with you a little bit there. Yeah, Shice is whimsical, but not silly is hard to pull off. I agree. Mystara couldn't manage. Planescape also went full scale silly at times. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm with you because I tend not to think of it as like memeable inside jokes all the time, and sometimes it can kind of it it can go that way, and you really don't want to do that. Everybody thinks they're Strider, but only Aragon truly is. Yeah, Hoya, I am mysterious, sitting in the dark corner. DM, sorry, you're not alone. All 4 of you are playing thieves. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm mysterious. But there's 5 players. We're all sitting in the corner. All 5 of you? What? Wait. Yeah, yeah. Good buried a game breaking food spot. I hate that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, a good berry. Yeah, except psst, I heard if you eat nothing but berries the whole time, you'll end up shitting yourself to death. Shit out all the levels of experience out of your rear end. All right, so let's get the hell out of the actual moon. Let's leave the plane breaker. As a matter of fact, in this image, by the way, right at the very bottom of this image, there's the little shadowy individuals, a campfire and such, and someone sitting here looking out across this weird, strange, sideways ocean. So these are the different chapters, chapter headings of the various notable locations that the plane breaker uh, has visited, will visit, and the players can go there. And these, of course, are all sandbox adventures. You can pick one or a number of them. It does suggest a little bit of the level ranges if you're playing classic Dungeons and Dragons. Um, Maybe you give your players a couple of story hooks, one like 3 to 5. I would go with 3, no more than 3. I like the number 3 anyway. And the players could be drawn to that by other NPCs, their own desires, and things like that. So, yeah, the first one, the Citadel of the Fate Eater, is a location, and of course, this is a third-party Monty Cook game. He has full-time staff and also reaches out to other writers, and so they assembled this together. And I'm sure this was like probably sitting at the back of someone's mind, Monty Cook or others, and said, "Hey, let's put this together." And so these planes of existence may seem like they should or could be part of some of the planes of existence you're thinking of in trademark Dungeons and Dragons, but these are not those places. Excuse me. There may be doorways to these places on the plane breaker. The plane breaker could be traveling through a plane of existence, and the players depart the plane breaker to get there. So you can mix and match and put them where you'd like to, and describe because the plane breaker has an intrinsic time limit to it. You could say the players have 8 hours to travel off of the plane breaker, to go to these places, to get back onto the plane breaker, to keep traveling along. So the plane breaker itself could be a base of operations, an excuse to go from place to place, like a train that's like a train or a boat that stops in various locations, and it's like all aboard, and the PCs are like, okay, we only got so far in this adventure, we got to hurry up and get back on the moon and keep on traveling, as it relatively slowly, flies through the atmosphere or something like that. So these different different locations. I'm going to attempt to find some that are. Let's see if it will break me out. It won't let me do it. All right. Sorry. Won't let me do it. I was going to fast forward skip ahead. I didn't write down the page number. Sorry about that. There's also some great artwork, so we'll get a bit of that. This is absolutely positively some kind of demonic location. Of course it looks gothic. Of course there's lava slash blood or whatever pouring off of castles. Of course there are um, flocks of demonic bat-winged creatures flying in the air. Of course there is. It's the Fate Eater's residence. And then the cell, the Fate Eater, and all the rooms and things like that. There's some maps here. There's some artwork. Of course, it details NPCs and things of that nature. Yeah. You can pull these out and place them, and of course, it gives you a perfect excuse of how your players arrive there, and it also has background information to, like, not only can the players visit there, but visit these various locations that the plane breaker is going to. But what about the denizens of that location? Do they know about the plane breaker? Do they have some way of communicating or traveling back and forth? Have they been left and closed off until the plane breaker arrives yet again? Was this a random event that happened once, or is this a regular thing? And so, yeah. Mm-mm-mm. All of these are, again, breakout boxes. It gives you some details about the location, maybe some. Let me see if we can get to the end of this. Arrow wound has to do with dreams, dream beasts, things like that. It's a small microplane or para arcane plane, and gives little details and things. So here we have an example of dream beasts, and it talks about creating your own dream beasts, and just it basically it's like, hey, it's pretty easy for you to do this thing. Here's how you do it. So, for example, in this particular plane, a dream beast is usually a hybrid, blending the likeness and abilities of at least two creatures, but possibly more, into a single unlikely creature able to take two actions on its turn. For example, a dream creature could be a hybrid cockatrice and a hydra, or an intellect devourer and a Hezrio. A dream of a fiend is not the same as a fiend, so this creature isn't prevented from being in Erahun. Erahun? Erahan? I don't know. Whatever. It's a made up word, so I'm I'm sure I'm putting the improper emphasis on the incorrect syllable. Anyway, or possibly something far less dangerous and more fanciful, such as a commoner poetry bookseller with the body of a human-sized bloodhawk. Most dream beasts don't want to interact. They want to roam free, but if cornered, they probably fight. Mechanically, a dream beast has the underlying stats of the higher challenge creature. To those base stats, add one or two actions or qualities of the lower challenge creature. Voila, your brand new dream beast is statted up. And they give these little hints in the various worlds, and it's like, yeah, you don't really need a giant 300-page book to describe this. Just make it up on your own, you know. Mm-mm. And there's some adventure hooks. Like the PCs want to find some place to take shelter from a powerful fiend. A character's troubled by a supernatural nightmare and was told they could actually kill the dream in Erahun. And the PCs need a telectocite as a gift to appease a powerful psionic foe. And I guess telectocite is like a crystalline, dream-like material that can be used for things. Etherguard. I'll show you an image. I got to put this image of Etherguard here, which, strangely enough, Etherguard is like a mini Planebreaker inside of the Planebreaker itself, which is weird. But the image on this image also is some in the beginning of the book, and this is a real place. Etherguard is a city on the back of a monstrosity that can travel from plane to plane, which is weird that they threw that in there, but I like it anyway. Yeah, that depiction of hell actually looks like a place in Mortal Kombat. It sure does, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Drew says, I expect increased entropy in the Citadel of the Fate Eater? I think it's well, it actually makes a lot of sense, right? If you don't have any, if maybe you guys are so silly. Uh, oh, Strider, the arcade game, has a second moon. By the way, the bad guy's base is a lot like the Planebreaker here. I didn't realize that. You guys are so bad. You guys are gonna get me in trouble. Anyway, uh, let's see if we can go to some of the details here. Let's see. Um, this city. And I did I bookmark it? Yes. Yes, I did. The Infinite Labyrinth. You guys will like the Infinite Labyrinth. Um, so Etherguard, Double Gates of Etherguard. Nah, we'll page it ahead. I was going to read it, but we'll let you see it. Etherguard basically walks from plane to plane like a small city, and it's this place is not immune to the places that it goes to. So if it goes to the plane of water, you can drown. Plane of fire, you can burn up, things like that. And there are various NPCs, the streets of the city, environmental dangers in Ethergard. It also, because it moves and walks, there's also dangers as well, like the environmental dangers of Ethergard. Here on the side, sometimes Ethergard just shifts or trembles, not enough to endanger those on its back, but noticeable all the same. There are also factions who would like to control the creature, this Ethergard, and some feel that there is a way to control it, and there might be an ancient artifact to control the city and where it goes. Great gift to give to the player characters. So yeah, it can shake, it can stomp. It's dangerous planes it can travel to. And then additional encounters on Ethergard. They also have many of these things. Sealed armory, ghosts, and players' characters, of course, can travel throughout the city and small towered city, state, or whatever things kept in there, trapped, and things like that. Mm-mm. Here we go. Dorothea's Coven Complex. Little hag. And then at the end of all these, of course, they have adventure hooks to continue if you would like the players to get caught up in it or maybe continue the story. Like, for example, here it says the characters stumble upon the roaming city. Actually, it stumbles upon them. The PCs are directed to a favor granting witch that resides in Ethergard, or the PCs trace a troubling curse afflicting an ally to an entity living upon Ethergard. So, yep, kind of cool. Grove of Crows. Optional rule: Grove of Crows manifestations. And every once in a while, you'll see um, like a new rule or something you can include in your other games. And so Planebreaker is not just, hey, here's a number of adventures, but it's like, here's a number of adventures. And oh, by the way, um, here's maybe an option you might want to import into an homage or maybe just straight out theft. You want to do it your home game and use it that way. For example, some of these planes of existence, the player characters might not meet the plane breaker at all. They just stumble upon these places, and then later on you may say, you know what, I'm using this from Plane Breaker. Maybe they might think this is kind of cool. Or you really don't like the absurdity of some of the material in here, and you just want to use all of these as separate encounters as the players travel along your standard plane, prime material plane of existence. And these just happen to be uh, uh, slightly different, as if they are not of this world. Here's another one that I kind of like: the Infinite Labyrinth. And this is literally taking dungeon crawling and embracing the crawling of the dungeon. So the Infinite Labyrinth is a um, oh, so this is another type of breakout box. If the PCs become victims of a spell or trap that drops them into a labyrinth in another dimension, such as the maze spell, you could use the Infinite Labyrinth as the basis for that location if you want to turn that event into an extended encounter in its own right. And so this Infinite Labyrinth is combination dungeon, laboratory, maze, abandoned castle, home. Um, it's infinite, and so and there are things and people and factions and such that live in there, and so yeah, you can use it for anything. Uh, Here's the breakout. I mean, sorry. Here's a sidebar. Level range. The Infinite Labyrinth is suitable for characters of all levels. However, the farther explorers press into the endless corridors, dungeon diving, right? The more severe potential threats become. Some PCs may need to retreat, possibly to return when they've achieved more power. Classic dungeon crawling, right? Classic I'm on the third level of the dungeon. That means our characters are third level, and we're going to encounter third level monsters without specifically saying that. And so here's an example picture of a room or location that is in the Infinite Labyrinth. It looks like there's, I don't know, uh, uh, fish tanks and aquatic things held here, maybe by a collector or wizards or something like that. And so the Infinite Labyrinth, things, people live in it. And it talks, and there's of course random tables and wandering the Infinite Labyrinth, and gives you. They do a lot of this. I remember the video where I talked about the view, the path, the way, meaning like I like the fact that a lot of indie games in the very first pages of their books tell you like, here's what the world's about. Here's how we expect people to play the game to get the most out of it. Here are some basic rules. Here are something, this happens in each of these small adventures. So, for example, it talks about wandering the Infinite Labyrinth, and it gives some details here, like new region, new theme. As an example, each new region has a new challenge, or maybe should have a new challenge. Right? Encounters with creatures, traps, or other dangerous situations usually start as reasonable challenges for a group of PCs of level 1 to 5. Each time the theme changes, keep track because explorers have pressed further into the Infinite Labyrinth. Increase the average challenge rating by +1 when this happens. Then adjust encounters on the fly by adding a creature or threat equal to the current challenge rating if you wish. In other words, as they delve deeper into the labyrinth, just make things harder and level appropriate. That's really a simple excuse. And then there's catacomb contents, things they can come across. Mm-mm-mm. Burrowing creatures, traveling creatures, accidental things left. It's dungeon crawling. Aquariums, catacombs, mansion, forest paths, laboratory, portraiture gallery, ruins, sculptures, shrines, temples, even spacecraft. Yep. All right, we're going to get past that. Uh, Lagris, the Burning Falls. Very demonic. There's a lot of that imagery in here. I wish they went. If I have to make a comment about something that is a disappointment. Hey, Anon. Ethegard versus the Tarrasque, the ultimate kaiju fight. Yeah, giant ass city on the back. I don't know if you'd want to be in the city when that fight happened, but Ethegard, the massive city on the back of a monster, is yeah. Or what a good option might be is the Ethegard maybe a from a world where Tarrasque like monsters have always lived, and it's traveling back home. Or it's also possible for the um, there's a biological nature to it that the Tarrasque is just happens to be one of dozens of creatures like it, and the player characters are there to domesticate or find one of these creatures that is destined to become one of these major cities. And maybe over time, like elephants, they go into hibernation or death state, and wherever they sit down and curl up, that's where a new mountain is with these massive monsters or something. I mean, there's so many different storylines you could tell. The Back to the negativity about Planebreaker. If I have to say there's something negative about the Planebreaker, is that they do draw upon a lot of hellscape, abyssal, um, lower planes imagery and such. And I get the fact that it's very popular in fantasy Dungeons and Dragons to fight demons, devils, um, Acheron, the world of Acheron, and the other planes of chaos and pandemonium, limbo, and such that we know of. So I get it. I just wished I think they could have made more space for other bizarre places to go. So that's just me. That like I like going into the demonic and devilish places, but I think they could have done a little bit more for that. I mean, like they either could have made a side book and just dealt with that, or not incorporate like because I believe if in my count there's about 6 or 7 locations that seem similar to me in that regard: lava, evil, fire, corrupting, and I'm like, yeah, you could have done something else. Planes of Mirror and Shadow is basically the PCs come across people like themselves, and it's a way to reflect what the players have done, are doing, and will do on themselves. And if you're someone who likes to punish the players, you think your players are overpowered, take them to the plane of Mirror and Shadow, and make your own players' characters the bad guys. That'd be really cool. Yeah, basically the players encounter themselves. Maybe they see themselves in the future. The PCs themselves are in another plane of existence where they are the ultimate bad guy, and things like that. Uh, the congruent corridor. It's a number of ways of being able to reflect uh, the the player characters upon themselves. And then there's alternate worlds. The players can go to alternate worlds, which are exactly like their own world, except there's something slightly different about it. And these are little details about going to alternate worlds that are just slightly different. You're like, hey, that's like home, except it's not home. And also, players can get trapped. They may think they're going back home, but then something's different, and then they realize it's like Sliders, the television show where they actually have to get back on the Planebreaker to try to get back home, where things are actually really home and not slightly different. Prison of Eternal Torment. Again, this kind of reminds me of that, like abyssal thing. Here's angry spirits, people tormented. Pretty nasty, but if Eternal Torment, eh, I like it, but it's like you could kind of combine all that together. Although it would be interesting for the players to arrive someplace and they're in a prison and they have to get out the prison to get back on the plane breaker to continue the adventure, um, to free themselves. Ramia the Starblade is is basically a fetch quest against others to try to get the Starblade itself. There is a bit of a science fiction connection to this as well. There's like a black hole in the background, so there is something like that. And there is a Starblade. Where's the image of the Starblade? It's coming up. Sorry, I can't. I wish I had a roller. There's the Starblade. It reminds me of a smaller version of like the Stormbringer, the Sword Elric Stormbringer, and there's also what's the adventure? White Plume Mountain has one, which is a veiled attempt to make the similar thing. A blade with the night sky in its reflected in its blade and stuff. Sanguine. Oh no, an underwater adventure. It's actually not underwater. It's you can easily tell this is inside of a giant living creature, or maybe a god or something like that. We've seen this plenty of times. Hey, player characters are inside of something that's alive. It's really cool though. They had some rules about the lungs and blood and white blood cells, things like that. So we'll get through a bunch of these swamps. Where's another one? No, not just Splintered Reach. Where's some artwork here? Absolute Chaos. There's even some robots in here. Dungeons and Dragons has always had a sci-fi element to it. They've not only just hinted at it, there's a number of old classic adventures that have had like laser weapons and chunks of power armor and uh, grenades and things like that in the game, as well as like computers. Even Pathfinder has had that in one of their Galorian cities and such. And this is no different. Here's the Storm of the Styx. Yep, another demonic, devilish location. People running like crazy because of the storms. River Styx as well. The bleak winter, cold, frozen. Another location where it's cold, it's frozen, and the players could get trapped there, and have to scramble their way back home. Telepathic ice magic, Tomb of Tomorrow, little time travel here, um, ancient knowledge, bringing back things that have passed. And lastly, let's get to some other stuff here. Uh, Here's some monsters, and there's that imagery again. You were talking about Mortal Kombat. There's some more imagery here. It does very much look like that, and then it gives you some example monsters. But monsters and the monsters by challenge rating. I Once you find out the secret of monster creation, it's very easy to it just adds just adjust the numbers, adjust its again, rename, reuse, repurpose, recontextualize. So a lot of monsters, but I mean, you can change the features of a monster, keep the same stat block. You could mix and match different stat blocks to make creatures uh, more powerful, less powerful. Arbiter the multiverse, Elar, more monsters, and then there's of course we have to have character options. That's the sexy part, right? Um, Backgrounds, character classes, species. I'm sorry, subclasses, feats, spells, items. You got to have that player character stuff. Travelers and names of travelers. So if you're born human but you're different, so you can be a human born and raised on the Planebreaker, or at least having been born in the other planes of existence. And so maybe you're a little bit different. Um, maybe your skin tone is different. You have a extreme height, size difference, larger or smaller than a regular human being. Um, your eyes and ears look different. That kind of stuff. Here's a person. It's got, I don't know, what is that? White veins against their flesh or something. No big deal. Made, not born. Chimeran traits. And see if we got a picture of. Look, blue hair, pistol knife. So anyway, we're getting to the end here. Some imagery. Glyph wings. And of course we got subclasses. Very, very um, thematic. So you got like a fighter subclass, the Chaos Blade. I'm not really into like whole subclassing thing. I get it; it's sexy. Players love ever more options, especially those of us that are world builders. We like to build giant worlds. Players on a small micro level like to build many characters, and this is exactly one of those things. Subclassing and making different character classes, and, blending different character classes and things like that is always a thing. Spell casting in the multiverse, some rules there, some spells, extra spells, how those spells operate, and then we get to the end of the book. Planar adventures, and these are like very short snippets of even more adventures. So places to go. So, for example, some of these aren't fully filled out. It's just like, hey, here's a place. Oh, here's another place. Oh, here's another place. Here's another place. And a lot of these, like the Tyrant's Key, these are places where um, the it's a vast war for these keys to go to places to acquire even more resources to do even more damage in eternal war. Oh, there's a detail here. You got that image. Sorry, I'm going to go back up. Arm of Destruction. So we have our image here of an arm blaster. Very classic imagery we see in fantasy and or science fiction. The person where one of their arms is a weapon. And we go here to the Arm of Destruction. Wondrous item, unique, custom fit to a man's ear, requires attunement. This fully articulated metal arm functions as a normal arm and hand. As her bonus action, Manazir can convert the prosthetic into a configuration that fires red rays of lightning. The prosthetic has 5 charges. 1d4 plus 1 expended charges are regained daily at dawn. As her action, can expend a charge to inflict 28 or 8d6 lightning damage in a 100-foot line on a failed DC 13 dex save or half as much on a success. Big deal, right? And of course, if you slay this person, maybe a player character would like to own that thing. Or acquire it or put it on or something like that. And then let's get the back matter. Really odd title for back matter, but is this of course has planar encounters, random planar landscapes, Sea of Uncertainty salvage that players can acquire, and then the index. So using the tables, you roll like times 1, 2, or 3 d20 on this table here, and there's a number of very, very strange, on purpose, out of context encounters. A lot of times, from green hags and quasits and doppelgangers and all that kind of stuff, right? And the table just goes on and on and on. And then there's random landscapes. So you definitely want to do all kinds of random landscapes, and you can use that as mind fuel, where the players make a left turn, and you do it at the table. Number 3, massive beasts crash through the jungle surrounding a volcano lined with fire. I think that might be a mistake here. Didn't realize that. Number 5, the interior of a great cavern pocked with bioluminescent fungi, some as large as cities. Or number 13, a natural landscape filled with vibrant life and color under a brilliant moon. Or number 18, lava rivers crisscross a plain of stinging cinders and flying sparks. Hey, I know. It's been an hour. I get it, kitty. All right, Sophie, so give me 5 minutes. And then I'll get to what these guys have to say and let them get out of here. And of course, these tables go on and on and on. There's some imagery. I think the best thing to do to not make this seem so gonzo is to add a bit of context to things, so that if you're going to bother using these random tables, like see, here's a random planar location, and it does have like the Abyss and Acheron, or Arborea, Bitopia. Honestly, I'm not even sure if any of this is even open. I don't know how open source a lot of this. Well, no, because a lot of these places are pop culture. Shadowfell isn't, not that I know of. So it mixes your original Planescape material along with the planes that are existent here, and it just goes into those locations. Let's see what you guys have to say. It's funny. Largest cities, bioluminescent fungi. The secret ingredients to monster creation is maths. It is. Maths. uh, yeah, so they could have done specific non-demonic. I agree with that. I do agree that they could have just, removed the words like an imagery of demonic, torturous kind of things and just make it someplace else. Give some of the other locations and creativity some love. I think. Yeah, the true horror of the plane of shade and mirrors is that all the corner spots are already taken by the mirrors of the rogues of the party. That's hilarious. Come on, Sophie. So I love you, kitty. You gotta let go. Yeah, you're knocking stuff down, kitty, kitty. It's been an hour. I know. We're gonna get out of here. We'll leave. She moved my chat. There we go. Yeah. Secret ingredient is monster math. All right. We've come to the end of the book and the end of the series. So I just wanted to introduce Planebreaker. Here's sea of uncertainty, the salvage of things that have get swept along. Is so, for example, if the players are pulled into the Planebreaker region, it's possible that they themselves may understand that there's other things that are being pulled along. Where did it come from? Are there people looking for it? Maybe they are waiting for something to fall upon the shores. Of course, there's a giant uh, table. Number 30, set of luggage carved from bone containing nobles' clothing and other personal belongings. Just random stuff. Reddish egg, if brooded or carried on person for 3 days, a gibbering mouther hatches. That kind of stuff. And then it has little hooks into the other realms that are in this book. For example, a 100-pound sculpture of a demonic winged being from the citadel of the Fate Eater. Where's the Fate Eater? You go ahead and turn it to that section and go on. And of course, these tables move on and on and on. Viridian boots, page 198. Thigh high boots covered in, actually composed of moss. And then it tells you where you find that. Like, what the hell does that mean? Of course, there's 100 entries as well, and some artwork to describe a lot of this. And then, of course, the index. Big giant index. And we are at the end of Planebreaker. And then there's more planar treasures, such as a planar bestiary and a Planebreaker character options. Of course, when was this book? The Planebreaker was produced in 2022 by Bonnie Cook Games. And let's see, we could go here. Oh, no. Let's get back to the title of the book. Boom, Planebreaker, and get the image up here. There we go. There we go. So, guys, thank you very much for letting me introduce you to this. Yeah, so if you also want to eat some fate. Yeah. Oh man, that's pretty cute. That's very cute. So yes, Planebreaker, a setting that isn't a giant excuse to get your players involved in all kinds of other shenanigans. Also, a great way to mix up the kinds of adventures that your players may be interested in. Maybe they want to you want to include something aquatic. You want to do heists. You like to do political intrigue. You also want to have players explore, do go back to classic dungeon crawling for once or twice or more than. And Planebreaker really allows you to do that. Also, there's an embedded story hook and tension timer, which I really appreciate. Storm. The Planebreaker could be traveling or is traveling and goes from place to place, so players can't, if they want to use it as a base of operations, they have a limited time schedule to leave it and come back. Also, if they stay on the Planebreaker, there's any number of additional NPCs, monsters, and other things that will impact the players. If they sit still, the world around them will begin changing, as well as the Planebreaker going from um, plane to plane. Always like, thanks for the stream. Question mark. I hope it can be helpful. But yeah, this week you'll see in the channel that each day we're going to do some 5th edition third party product that really inspired me. And I like the idea of, having a divergent adventure. And also, we have to be careful because there's so many. The Planebreaker itself has so many options in it that it can feel like it's a little overwhelming. So of course you want to know your players. What are they into? Are they into um, acquiring treasure and power, or are they more into the shenanigans and having fun and role playing amongst themselves? And then you would then cultivate all the actions and interactions with that. For example, do your players like being drawn into chaos? Then they could easily be pulled upon the undertow or the surge, the storm surge of the Planebreaker as it passes by, and they accidentally get pulled into it. Maybe you had an adventure series and they ended it, and you're like, I don't know where to go next. Maybe they found one of these strange tokens or coins or whatever, and they use that coin as passage to get onto the Planebreaker and have further adventures. Maybe your player characters are at the quote unquote retirement level, and the Planebreaker itself, maybe they've been appointed to oversee the Planebreaker as it travels from plane of existence to plane of existence. Uh, Maybe they have to monitor a transition, or it's been predicted that the Planebreaker will arrive, and the players have, maybe the oracles or people just, they know it arrives, but histories haven't written anything down after that point. It's arrived, and then all history is wiped out. Why? And the player characters are there when the Planebreaker literally shatters the very reality around them and travels across the night sky. And the player characters are now there to uncover the origins and the histories. By the way, the book does not tell you where it came from, why it exists, where it's going next. And that's on purpose so that you can decide for your own game system. So, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. The producer really wants me to end this programming as we speak. Yeah, Kitty, you can't show everybody your bunghole. Yeah, yeah, yeah. By the way, Hoy and everybody else who's who has seen some of this show, thank you very much for tolerating myself and the shenanigans that go on around me. I really appreciate it. Also, please, stop by the rest of the week, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and take part. If not, please leave a message and comment or whatever if you'd like to see some other things. We are doing this specifically Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, which is in the Creative Commons. It does not belong to Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons, or um, Hasbro. It is in Creative Commons now. We also have very many options if you don't want to give them any of your money. For example, Level Up Advanced 5th Edition, which I was one of the contributing writers to from N-World, as well as Tales of the Valiant, and we have other games coming, the MCDM role-playing game. We have DC 20 coming along. So many other options out there. So, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Really appreciate it. And have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace. And I am out.